Clementine Rosewood's apartment looked like it had been hit by a hurricane of legal papers, law books, and half-empty coffee mugs. She was hunched over her makeshift desk, a wooden board balanced on two sawhorses, when the buzzer rang with the insistence of someone who wouldn't take no for an answer. "Who wants to bother me at 7 a.m. on a Monday morning?" she muttered, adjusting her crooked glasses and stumbling over a pile of case files. "Delivery for Clementine Rosewood," shouted a voice from the other side. "I didn't order anything." She frowned but pressed the buzzer anyway. 3 minutes later, a breathless delivery guy handed her a golden envelope sealed with red wax, the kind of invitation she only saw in movies about rich, bored people. "Are you sure this is for me?" she asked, turning the envelope in her hands like it was a bomb. "Clementine Rosewood, apartment 304, Maple Street 127. "That's me, but—" "Then it's yours, ma'am. Have a great day." Clementine stood there in the hallway wearing plaid pajamas and unicorn slippers, holding this thing that looked like it came from a fairy tale, or a nightmare. With her, you never knew. Back in her apartment, she examined the seal. A golden eagle with spread wings. Surrounded by Latin writing, she had no clue what it meant. "Okay, Clem. Breathe," she murmured to herself. "It's probably luxury spam." She broke the seal with the care of someone defusing a bomb and unfolded the finest paper she'd ever touched. The Brightwater Foundation has the honor of inviting Miss Clementine Rosewood to the annual Charity Gala for the Arts, to be held this Saturday at 7 p.m. at Whitmore Palace. Dress code, black tie, RSVP by Wednesday. Clementine read it 3 times, then 2 more. Then she let out a laugh that echoed through the tiny apartment. Brightwater? Me? She looked around at the organized chaos she called home. They definitely sent this to the wrong person. She grabbed her phone and dialed her best friend, Penelope Quinn, who answered on the first ring with the energy of someone who'd been awake for hours. "Penny, you won't believe what just happened. You finally decided to go out with Marcus from the 3rd floor? No. Better. Or worse. I'm not sure yet. I got an invitation to a high society gala." Silence on the other end. Then an explosion. "What do you mean a gala? Like Cinderella? With long gowns and expensive champagne?" "Exactly that. Brightwater Foundation. At Whitmore Palace." "Oh my God, Clem, do you know who these people are? The Brightwaters practically control half the city. And Whitmore Palace. Wow, that's where the elite of the elite gather to decide the fate of us mere mortals." "Penny, stop. You're scaring me." "And you should be scared. Or excited, or both." "When is it?" "Saturday." "This Saturday? As in 5 days from now?" Clementine looked at the calendar stuck to her fridge, full of notes about case deadlines and appointments with clients who could barely afford her fees. "Yeah, this Saturday. This—" "Clem, this is amazing. Are you going?" "Of course I'm not going. I'm a lawyer for lost causes. I live in an apartment that barely fits one person, and my fanciest dress has a tomato sauce stain that's been refusing to come out for 3 months. Those are just technical details. Penny. No, listen, what if the universe is giving you an opportunity? What if this is your Cinderella moment? The universe isn't usually that kind to me. Remember when I won that resort trip and it turned out to be a pyramid scheme? That was one time. And when I was selected for that entrepreneurial women's magazine and it was just to sell me a digital marketing course? Okay, twice, but Penny, good things don't just happen to me out of nowhere. There's some catch to this." But even as she spoke, Clementine found herself imagining what it would be like to step into those golden ballrooms she saw in gossip magazines. To wear a dress that cost more than her rent. To drink real champagne, not that cheap sparkling wine she bought at the grocery store. "What if there's no catch?" Penny insisted. "What if it's real? Then I have nothing to wear, I don't know anyone, and I'll make a fool of myself in front of the cream of society. Or you could meet someone incredible, live a magical night, and maybe change your life forever." Clementine looked at the invitation again. The golden paper gleamed under the morning light coming through the small apartment window. "Do you really think I should go?" "Clem, I think you should run to the mall right now and find the most beautiful dress you can afford. Or can afford. Credit cards exist for a reason. This is crazy. Life is crazy, And you deserve a little bit of good crazy in your life. Clementine bit her lower lip, a habit she'd had since childhood when making important decisions. Decisions that usually involve choosing between pragmatism and impossible dreams. I'll think about it. You're going to go. I know you will. Because deep down, you're dying of curiosity to see what that world is like. After hanging up, Clementine stared at the invitation for another 10 minutes. Then she carefully stored it in a folder, along with important contracts and documents she couldn't afford to lose. But for the rest of the day, while attending to clients and fighting bureaucratic processes, her mind kept returning to the golden paper and the possibilities it represented. What if Penny was right? What if this was the opportunity of her lifetime? Or what if it was the biggest trap she'd ever fallen into? There was only one way to find out. By Wednesday afternoon, Clementine had made up her mind. Sort of. Maybe. The RSVP deadline was breathing down her neck like a hungry dragon, and Penny had been texting her every hour with increasingly dramatic messages ranging from, "Do it for womankind," to "I'll never forgive you if you don't go." "Fine," she announced to her empty apartment, startling Mr. Whiskers, the neighbor's cat who somehow always ended up on her fire escape. "I'm going to this ridiculous gala, and I'm going to look absolutely stunning while making a complete fool of myself." The first stop was obviously the mall, not the fancy boutiques downtown where a single earring cost more than her monthly grocery budget, but the good old Westfield shopping center, where dreams went to be reasonably priced. Penny met her at the food court, armed with a large coffee and the kind of determined expression usually reserved for war generals. "Okay, battle plan." She pulled out a folded piece of paper covered in her messy handwriting. "Black tie event means floor-length gown, elegant but not too flashy, something that won't make you look like you're trying too hard but also won't make you invisible. Penny, it's a dress, not a dissertation. This is more important than a dissertation. This could be your Roman holiday moment, or my Carrie at prom moment." They hit the first store with the enthusiasm of bargain hunters on Black Friday. Clementine tried on 17 dresses, each one making her look either like a deflated balloon or a disco ball that had seen better days. "Next," Penny called out like a reality show judge. "Store number 2, 12 dresses, ranging from grandmother's curtains to mermaid having an identity crisis." "This is hopeless," Clementine groaned, flopping down on a fitting room bench in her underwear in the 18th dress of the day, a navy blue number that made her look like she was attending a funeral for fun. "We're not giving up. There's still Macy's, Nordstrom Rack, and that little vintage place by the parking garage." "Penny, I appreciate your optimism, but maybe this is the universe telling me I don't belong in that world. Or maybe the universe is testing your determination. Come on, one more store." The vintage shop turned out to be a gold mine disguised as a fire hazard. Racks upon racks of dresses from different decades hung in organized chaos, each piece telling its own story of glamorous nights gone by. "Welcome, darlings." The shop owner, a woman in her 60s with silver hair piled high and enough jewelry to stock a small store, glided toward them. "I'm Vivian, and I can spot a dress emergency from 3 blocks away." "Is it that obvious?" Clementine asked. "Honey, you have the look of a woman who needs to attend something fabulous but has no idea what fabulous looks like on her. Lucky for you, I've been doing this for 30 years. What's the occasion?" "Charity gala, Whitmore Palace, black tie." Vivian's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. "Oh, you're playing with the big boys now. Follow me." She led them to a section Clementine hadn't noticed before, where dresses that looked like they belonged in movies hung under soft lighting. "This," Vivian pulled out a dress that made Clementine's breath catch, "is a 1960s Halston-inspired piece. Silk chiffon, perfectly preserved, and it's going to make you look like Grace Kelly's cooler younger sister." The dress was emerald green, with a flowing skirt that moved like water, and a neckline that was elegant without being scandalous. When Clementine put it on, something magical happened. She didn't just look different, she felt different. "Oh my God," Penny whispered. "You look like I belong in that world?" Clementine asked hopefully. "Like you're going to own that world." Vivian clapped her hands together. Perfect. Now we need shoes, a little clutch, and some confidence-boosting accessories. An hour later, Clementine walked out of the vintage shop with a complete outfit, a lighter bank account, and butterflies doing acrobatics in her stomach. I can't believe I just spent my emergency fund on a dress I'll probably never wear again. Are you kidding? You'll wear this to accept your Nobel Prize, your Oscar, and when you marry the man of your dreams. Penny, it's one night. Famous last words. That evening, Clementine stood in front of her bathroom mirror, practicing walking in heels and trying to convince herself she hadn't completely lost her mind. The dress hung on her bedroom door like a green silk reminder that her ordinary life was about to intersect with something extraordinary. She picked up her phone to call the RSVP number, her finger hovering over the dial button. What was the worst that could happen? She'd make a fool of herself in front of some rich people she'd never see again. She'd spill something on her dress. She'd trip walking up the palace steps. Or, what if something wonderful happened? She dialed the number before she could change her mind. Brightwater Foundation, how may I help you? Hi, this is Clementine Rosewood. I'm calling to RSVP for Saturday's gala. Of course, Miss Rosewood. We're so pleased you'll be joining us. May I confirm you'll be attending alone? Yes, just me. Wonderful. Your name will be at the gate. We look forward to seeing you Saturday evening. After hanging up, Clementine stared at herself in the mirror one more time. The woman looking back at her looked braver than she felt, and maybe that was enough. Okay, universe, she said to her reflection. Let's see what you got planned for me. Saturday evening arrived like a freight train, wrapped in silk and anxiety. Clementine had spent the entire day alternating between excitement and pure terror, practicing her small talk in the mirror. Oh yes, I summer in my apartment, and Googling how not to embarrass yourself at fancy parties. Penny had come over at 5 to help with hair and makeup, armed with enough beauty products to stock a small salon and the confidence of a woman who watched too many makeover shows. Stop fidgeting, Penny commanded, wielding a curling iron like a magic wand. You're going to be the most beautiful woman there. That's statistically impossible. These people probably have personal stylists and genetics that cost more than my car. Your car is held together by duct tape and prayers, so that's not saying much. At exactly 6:30 p.m., Clementine stood in front of her full-length mirror, a $20 find from a yard sale that had a crack running down one side. But even through the imperfect glass, she had to admit Penny had worked miracles. Her hair cascaded in elegant waves, her makeup was flawless without being overdone, and the emerald dress transformed her into someone she barely recognized. I look like a real person, she whispered. You look like a woman who belongs anywhere she wants to be, Penny corrected, dabbing away a happy tear. Now go knock them dead and text me every detail. The Uber ride to Whitmore Palace felt like traveling to another planet. As they drove through increasingly upscale neighborhoods, Clementine watched through the window as modest houses gave way to mansions, then to estates that looked like they belonged in European fairy tales. First time at Whitmore? The driver asked, catching her awestruck expression in the rearview mirror. Is it that obvious? Honey, I've driven plenty of folks there over the years. The regulars never look up from their phones. You're drinking it all in like it's magic. Maybe it is. When they turned the final corner, Clementine's breath caught. Whitmore Palace rose before them like something from a dream, its golden stone walls glowing under strategically placed spotlights. Crystal chandeliers visible through enormous windows cast dancing shadows across manicured gardens, and a red carpet led from the circular driveway to massive oak doors that probably cost more than her yearly salary. This is your stop, Cinderella, the driver said with a kind smile. Go show 'em how it's done. Clementine stepped out of the car on legs that felt like jelly, clutching her vintage beaded clutch like a lifeline. Other guests were arriving in town cars and limousines, women in gowns that probably graced magazine covers and men in tuxedos that fit like second skins. Name? Asked the impeccably dressed attendant at the entrance, consulting a tablet that looked more expensive than her laptop. Clementine Rosewood. He scrolled, tapped, smiled professionally. "Welcome, Miss Rosewood. Please enjoy your evening." And then she was inside. The main ballroom took her breath away. Crystal chandeliers the size of small cars hung from a ceiling painted with cherubs and clouds. Marble columns reached toward heaven, and floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of gardens that belonged in Versailles. Elegant guests mingled with champagne flutes, their conversations creating a sophisticated hum that mixed with the string quartet playing in the corner. Champagne? A waiter appeared beside her as if by magic, offering a tray of glasses filled with liquid that sparkled like liquid diamonds. "Thank you," she managed, accepting a glass with hands that trembled slightly. She took a sip and nearly choked. This wasn't the cheap sparkling wine she was used to. This was actual champagne, smooth and perfect and probably worth more than her monthly rent. Overwhelmed? Clementine turned to find herself face to face with the most beautiful man she'd ever seen outside of a movie screen. Tall, with dark hair that looked like it had been styled by angels and eyes the color of storm clouds, he wore his tuxedo like he'd been born in it. When he smiled, she forgot how to breathe. What? She blinked, certain she was hallucinating. "Your first Brightwater gala?" His voice was warm, amused, with just a hint of an accent she couldn't place. "I can always spot the newcomers. They're the only ones who still remember to be amazed by all this. Is it that obvious I don't belong here?" "On the contrary," he said, his eyes traveling over her face with an intensity that made her knees weak. "You're the only person here who looks like she's truly alive." Before she could ask what that meant, a photographer appeared out of nowhere. "Mr. Brightwater, perfect timing. Could we get a few shots for the society pages?" Clementine's champagne glass slipped from her numb fingers, shattering on the marble floor in a cascade of crystal and golden liquid. "Mr. Brightwater, as in Brightwater Foundation, as in the family hosting this entire event." "Oh God," she whispered. "I'm so sorry, I didn't know." "It's fine," he said, his hand warm on her elbow as he steadied her. "Sebastian Brightwater, and you are?" "Mortified," she replied automatically, then realized what she'd said. "I mean, Clementine Rosewood." Sebastian Brightwater threw back his head and laughed, a rich, genuine sound that made several nearby guests turn and stare. "Well, mortified Clementine Rosewood," he said, ignoring the photographer who was still waiting hopefully. "Would you like to dance? I promise the floor is less dangerous than the champagne service." And before she knew what was happening, Sebastian Brightwater, heir to one of the most powerful families in the city, was leading her onto the dance floor, and Clementine's ordinary life was officially over. Dancing with Sebastian Brightwater was like floating on a cloud made of pure magic and expensive cologne. He moved with the grace of someone who'd been taking ballroom lessons since he could walk, leading her across the marble floor as if she weighed nothing at all. Every other couple seemed to fade into background blur as they swayed to the string quartet's haunting melody. "You're full of surprises, Clementine Rosewood," he murmured, his breath warm against her ear. "Most people who attend these events treat them like business transactions. You're actually enjoying yourself." "Hard not to when you're living in a fairy tale," she replied, then immediately regretted it. "Sorry, that probably sounds incredibly naive to someone like you." "Someone like me? You know, rich, sophisticated, born into all this." She gestured around the opulent ballroom with her free hand. Sebastian's expression shifted, something almost sad flickering across his features. "Trust me, being born into something doesn't mean you understand it, or that it understands you." Before she could ask what he meant, the music ended and polite applause rippled across the room. Sebastian kept his hand on her waist a moment longer than necessary, and Clementine felt heat rise in her cheeks. "Sebastian, darling." A woman who looked like she'd stepped off the cover of Vogue glided toward them, her silver gown trailing behind her like liquid mercury. She was probably 40 but looked 30, with the kind of ageless beauty that came from excellent genetics and even better plastic surgeons. "Victoria." Sebastian's voice cooled noticeably. "I thought you were in Paris." "Flew back just for tonight, obviously." Victoria's smile was perfect and sharp as a blade. She turned to Clementine with the predatory interest of a cat sizing up a mouse. "And who is this charming creature?" "Clementine Rosewood. Meet Victoria Ashford. Victoria runs half the art galleries in the city." "Clementine," Victoria repeated, as if testing how the name tasted. "What an unusual name. Are you in the arts, darling?" "I'm a lawyer, actually." "How practical." Victoria's smile never wavered, but something cold flashed in her eyes. "What kind of law?" "Civil rights, mainly. I help people who can't usually afford legal representation." "How noble." Victoria's laugh tinkled like breaking glass. "Sebastian has always had a soft spot for charity cases." The words hit Clementine like a slap. Sebastian's jaw tightened. "Victoria." "Oh, don't mind me, I'm just being silly." Victoria waved a perfectly manicured hand. "Sebastian, your father is looking for you. Something about the foundation announcement?" "What announcement?" Clementine asked, but Victoria was already steering Sebastian away with practiced efficiency. "Duty calls, I'm afraid," Victoria said sweetly. "Don't worry, darling, there are plenty of other eligible bachelors here tonight. I'm sure you'll find someone more suitable." And just like that, Clementine was standing alone in the middle of the dance floor watching Sebastian disappear into the crowd with a woman who clearly considered her an unwelcome intruder. "Rough night?" She turned to find a kind-faced man in his 50s with silver hair and eyes that crinkled with genuine warmth. Unlike everyone else in the room, he looked at her like she was a real person, not a curiosity. "Dr. Marcus Webb," he introduced himself. "I'm the Foundation's medical advisor." "And you look like you could use a friend." "Clementine Rosewood. And yes, I think I'm in over my head. First rule of survival at these things. Never let the Victoria Ashfords of the world make you feel small. She's threatened by you, which means you're doing something right." "Threatened by me?" She's gorgeous, sophisticated, and clearly knows Sebastian well. She's also desperate to be the next Mrs. Brightwater, and has been for about 5 years now. The fact that Sebastian spent the entire evening dancing with a beautiful stranger, instead of paying attention to her, has probably sent her into full panic mode. Before Clementine could process this information, the lights dimmed, and a spotlight illuminated a small stage at the front of the ballroom. A distinguished man who could only be Sebastian's father stepped up to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our annual gala. Tonight, we're not just celebrating the arts, we're unveiling an exciting new initiative." Clementine felt a strange chill run down her spine as cameras positioned around the room began flashing. "The Brightwater Foundation is proud to announce our partnership with the Rosewood Legal Aid Society, a groundbreaking program that will provide free legal services to underserved communities across the city." The blood drained from Clementine's face. Rosewood Legal Aid Society? She'd never heard of such an organization, and she knew every legal aid group in the city. This innovative program was brought to our attention by a remarkable young attorney who embodies everything we value: integrity, dedication, and a commitment to justice. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Miss Clementine Rosewood. The spotlight swung to find her, and suddenly every eye in the room was trained on her frozen form. Camera flashes exploded like fireworks, and she heard her name being whispered throughout the crowd. Dr. Webb's hand gripped her elbow. "Smile and wave," he whispered urgently. "Whatever's happening here, don't let them see you panic." But Clementine was beyond panic. This was terror in its purest form. She hadn't created any legal aid society. She'd never spoken to anyone from the Brightwater Foundation before receiving that mysterious invitation. Someone was using her name, her reputation, her life, and she had no idea why. Through the crowd, she caught sight of Sebastian, his face a mask of confusion and something that might have been betrayal. Their eyes met across the room, and she saw the exact moment he began to doubt everything about her. The trap was closing, and she was right in the center of it. The polite applause felt like thunder in Clementine's ears as she stood frozen under the merciless spotlight. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her legs felt like they'd been carved from marble. Dr. Webb's steadying hand on her elbow was the only thing keeping her upright. Wave, he whispered again, more urgently. Just smile and wave. Somehow she managed to lift her hand in a trembling acknowledgement, her face arranged in what she hoped resembled a smile rather than the grimace of a woman about to be sick, all over a priceless Persian rug. The spotlight mercifully moved away as Charles Brightwater continued his speech, but the damage was done. Clementine could feel curious eyes boring into her from every direction, hear the whispered conversations spreading through the crowd like wildfire. Who is she? Never heard of her before tonight. Came out of nowhere. Sebastian seemed quite taken with her. We need to get you out of here, Dr. Webb murmured, already guiding her toward a side exit. Now, before the reporters start asking questions. But it was too late. A woman with sharp features and a recorder materialized in front of them like a predatory bird. Miss Rosewood, Jennifer Hayes, City Tribune. Can you tell us about your legal aid society? When was it established? Clementine's throat felt like sandpaper. I need some air. Is it true you've been working with the Brightwater Foundation for months? What's your relationship with Sebastian Brightwater? More reporters appeared, circling like sharks who'd smelled blood. Camera flashes exploded in her face, and questions came from every direction. Dr. Webb, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. Sebastian pushed through the crowd, his jaw set in grim determination. I'll handle this. Sebastian, Clementine breathed, relief flooding through her. I can explain. Can you? His storm gray eyes were cold, searching her face like he was seeing her for the first time. Because I'm having a hard time understanding how someone I just met tonight is apparently our foundation's newest partner. The words hit her like a physical blow. She watched understanding dawn in his expression, followed quickly by something that looked suspiciously like disgust. You're not who you pretended to be, are you? He said quietly, but his voice carried in the sudden hush that had fallen around them. This whole evening. What was this? Some kind of scam? No. Sebastian, please, I don't know what's happening any more than you do. Miss Rosewood. Another reporter shoved a microphone toward her face. Are the rumors true that you and Mr. Brightwater are romantically involved? We're not. Clementine felt the room spinning, the elegant faces around her blurring into a kaleidoscope of suspicion and judgment. Victoria Ashford appeared at Sebastian's side like a perfectly groomed guardian angel, her hand sliding possessively through his arm. Sebastian, darling, perhaps we should let security handle this situation, she said sweetly. It's clear this poor girl is in over her head. Don't, Clementine said sharply, finding her voice at last. Don't you dare talk about me like I'm not standing right here. Victoria's eyebrows rose delicately. Of course, darling. Though I do think you owe everyone an explanation. Using someone else's foundation for your own publicity. It's rather tacky, don't you think? I didn't use anyone. Clementine's voice rose above the murmur of the crowd. I received an invitation to this gala. I had no idea about any partnership or legal aid society with my name on it. Someone is using me and I intend to find out who. How convenient, Victoria murmured. The victim card is always so fashionable. Sebastian's expression flickered with something that might have been doubt, but before he could speak, his father's voice boomed across the ballroom. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention once more. Charles Brightwater stood at the microphone again, his distinguished face grave. It appears there's been some confusion regarding tonight's announcement. Perhaps Miss Rosewood could join me on stage to clarify the details of her organization. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, creating a clear path to the stage. Clementine felt like Marie Antoinette being led to the guillotine. Every step felt leaden, every breath a struggle. Dr. Webb appeared beside her. You don't have to do this, he whispered. We can find another way. No, she said, surprising herself with the steadiness in her voice. If someone wants to destroy my reputation using the Brightwater name, they're going to have to do it in front of everyone. She climbed the steps to the stage on shaking legs, her emerald dress suddenly feeling like a costume from a play she'd never auditioned for. Charles Brightwater studied her with sharp, intelligent eyes that reminded her painfully of his son. Miss Rosewood, he said quietly, close enough to the microphone that his words carried across the silent ballroom. Perhaps you could enlighten us about the status of your legal aid society. Our records show extensive correspondence between your organization and our foundation, but there seems to be some discrepancy. Clementine looked out at the sea of faces, curious, suspicious, hungry for scandal. She found Sebastian in the crowd, Victoria still clinging to his arm like a beautiful parasite. His expression was unreadable, but she could see the war between doubt and something deeper playing across his features. "The truth is," she began, her voice carrying clearly in the hushed ballroom, "I have no idea what correspondence you're referring to, Mr. Brightwater. I've never heard of the Rosewood Legal Aid Society until 5 minutes ago. Someone has been using my name without my knowledge or consent, and I'm as eager as you are to find out who and why." A collective gasp rose from the crowd. Camera flashes exploded like fireworks. "However," she continued, her voice growing stronger, "I stand behind everything I told your son earlier. I am a civil rights attorney. I do help people who can't afford legal representation. And if someone thought my work was worthy enough to forge a partnership with your foundation, then maybe that says something about the value of what I do, even if the method was completely wrong." The ballroom erupted into chaos, reporters shouting questions, guests whispering frantically, society matrons clutching their pearls like the world was ending. But Clementine only had eyes for Sebastian, who was staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. The trap had been sprung, but somehow she was still standing. The aftermath of Clementine's declaration was like watching a perfectly choreographed disaster in slow motion. Reporters surged forward like a tsunami of questions and camera flashes, while society guests whispered behind jeweled hands with the enthusiasm of spectators at a gladiator match. Charles Brightwater raised his hand for silence, his authoritative presence somehow managing to quiet the chaos. "Ladies and gentlemen, clearly there are matters that require private investigation. Perhaps we should allow the evening's festivities to continue while we sort this out." But the damage was done. The carefully orchestrated elegance of the gala had been replaced by something that felt more like a three-ring circus, and Clementine was the unwilling main attraction. As she stepped down from the stage on unsteady legs, Sebastian intercepted her path. His face was a mask of controlled emotion, but she could see the storm brewing behind his gray eyes. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "Privately. Sebastian, I know how this looks. Do you?" His voice was low, dangerous. "Because from where I stand, it looks like someone either played an elaborate con on my family's foundation, or you're a very talented actress." Before she could respond, Victoria materialized beside them with the timing of a Broadway star making her entrance. "Sebastian, darling, surely you don't need to involve yourself further in this situation." She placed a possessive hand on his arm. "Let security handle it." "Victoria?" Sebastian's voice carried a warning edge. "Not now. I'm only thinking of your reputation, darling, and your family's. This whole scandal could reflect poorly on the foundation's credibility." Dr. Webb appeared at Clementine's other side, his kind face set in uncharacteristic sternness. "Miss Ashford, I think Miss Rosewood has been through enough public humiliation for one evening. Perhaps some compassion might be in order." Victoria's laugh tinkled like breaking crystal. "Compassion? For someone who's potentially defrauded a charitable organization? How very naive of you, Marcus." "That's enough," Sebastian snapped, his composure finally cracking. "Victoria, I need you to step back, now." Something flickered across Victoria's perfect features. Surprise, hurt, and then a flash of something much darker. "Of course," she said smoothly, but her eyes remained fixed on Clementine with predatory intensity. "I'll just mingle." As Victoria glided away, Sebastian turned back to Clementine with an expression that was impossible to read. "There's a private study off the main corridor. We can talk there without an audience." The study was a sanctuary of leather-bound books in masculine elegance, dominated by a massive desk that probably cost more than Clementine's annual salary. Sebastian closed the door behind them, and suddenly the noise of the gala seemed a million miles away. "Sit," he said, gesturing to one of the leather chairs facing the desk. "Please." Instead, Clementine remained standing, wrapping her arms around herself like armor. "You think I'm lying," she said. It wasn't a question. Sebastian moved to the window, staring out at the manicured gardens illuminated by moonlight. "I think someone is lying. The question is who?" He turned back to face her. "My father doesn't make mistakes, Clementine. If he says we have correspondence from your organization, then we do. If he says there are signed contracts, financial records, meeting notes, then they exist. Then someone forged them." Her voice was steady despite the chaos in her chest. "Sebastian, I swear to you on everything I hold dear, I have never communicated with your foundation before receiving that invitation. I didn't even know who you were when we met tonight." "Didn't you?" His eyes searched her face intently. "You seemed nervous when you arrived, but not surprised, like someone who was expecting something. I was nervous because I don't belong in your world." The words burst out of her. "I spent my emergency fund on this dress. I practiced small talk in the mirror for 3 hours. I was terrified I'd embarrass myself by using the wrong fork or tripping over my own feet. But I never expected any of this." Sebastian was quiet for a long moment, studying her with an intensity that made her feel transparent. "The invitation," he said finally. "Do you still have it?" "Of course. It's in my apartment, in my important documents folder." "Who delivered it?" "A courier service. I thought it was strange at the time. I'd never received anything like that before." Sebastian pulled out his phone, dialing quickly. "Dad, it's Sebastian. I need you to have someone pull the guest list and invitation records for tonight." "Yes, specifically Clementine Rosewood. I'll explain later." While he spoke, Clementine wandered to the bookshelf, running her fingers along leather spines that probably contained more wisdom than she'd encounter in a lifetime. Everything in this room spoke of old money, established power, generations of influence. And here she was, a girl from the wrong side of town who'd stumbled into the middle of something she didn't understand. "Interesting," Sebastian said after hanging up. "According to our records, your invitation was requested specifically by someone on our board, Victoria Ashford." Clementine spun around, her heart hammering. "Victoria? But why would she—" "I don't know, but I intend to find out." Sebastian's expression had shifted from suspicion to something much more protective. "Clementine, if someone is using you to manipulate our foundation, then you're not the perpetrator. You're another victim." The relief that flooded through her was so intense she had to grip the back of the chair to stay upright. "You believe me?" Sebastian crossed the room to stand directly in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, see the flecks of silver in his gray eyes. "I watched your face tonight. When my father made that announcement, you looked like you'd been struck by lightning. Either you're the most talented actress I've ever met, or you're telling the truth. I'm definitely not that good an actress." "No," he said quietly, reaching up to touch her face with gentle fingers. "You're not. You're honest and brave and completely genuine, which makes you either very rare or very dangerous in my world." "Which do you think I am?" "Both," he murmured, and then he was kissing her, soft and sweet and desperate, like a man who'd been drowning and had finally found air. When they broke apart, Clementine felt dizzy with more than just desire. "Sebastian, what if this ruins your family's reputation? What if—" "Then we'll face it together," he said firmly. "But first, we're going to find out who's been playing games with both our lives, and why." Outside the study door, footsteps hurried past, and Clementine could hear Charles Brightwater's voice giving orders to what sounded like security personnel. The hunt for the truth was about to begin. 20 minutes later, the private study had transformed into an impromptu war room. Charles Brightwater sat behind his imposing desk, surrounded by laptops, file folders, and 2 security personnel who looked like they could bench press small buildings. "Doctor." Webb paced by the windows while Sebastian and Clementine occupied the leather sofa, her hand firmly tucked in his. "The paper trail is extensive," Charles announced, looking up from a thick folder. "Emails, contracts, financial projections, meeting notes. Someone put considerable effort into creating a believable fiction." "But why me?" Clementine asked for the 100th time. "I'm nobody special. I'm not rich. I'm not connected. I'm not—" "You're perfect, Doctor," Webb interrupted, turning from the window with a grim expression. "Think about it. Young, attractive, genuinely committed to helping people but without the resources to investigate a foundation partnership thoroughly. And your name, Rosewood, it's memorable, distinguished sounding, perfect for a fake charity organization." Sebastian's grip on her hand tightened. But what was the end game? What did Victoria hope to accomplish? "Money," Charles said flatly, sliding a document across the desk. According to these forged records, the Rosewood Legal Aid Society was supposed to receive an initial grant of $2 million with provisions for annual funding of $500,000 thereafter. Clementine's mouth fell open. $2 million? That's insane. "It gets worse," Charles continued. "The contracts show that Victoria Ashford was designated as the liaison between our foundation and your organization, with full authorization to handle all financial transfers. She was going to steal $2 million, Sebastian said slowly, and pin it on Clementine when the fake organization inevitably collapsed. Or disappeared entirely," Dr. Webb added, "leaving Clementine to face fraud charges while Victoria walked away with the money." A soft knock interrupted them. One of the security guards opened the door to admit a young woman with a tablet and an expression of barely contained excitement. "Mr. Brightwater, we found something." She hurried to the desk, swiping frantically on her tablet. "We pulled the security footage from the courier company that delivered Miss Rosewood's invitation. Look at this." She turned the tablet screen toward them, revealing grainy black and white footage of a figure in oversized sunglasses and a designer coat dropping off an envelope at the courier service. "The timestamp shows this was recorded 3 weeks ago. And watch this." She tapped the screen, zooming in on the figure's hand as they signed the delivery receipt. "That's Victoria Ashford's signature. We have samples from dozens of foundation documents." "She hand-delivered the invitation order," Sebastian breathed. "She wanted to make sure there was no digital trail linking her to it." Charles leaned back in his chair, his expression thunderous. 30 years I've known Victoria. Her family and mine have been friends for generations, and she was willing to destroy our foundation's reputation, steal millions of dollars, and frame an innocent woman to cover her tracks. "But why now?" Clementine asked. "Why take such a huge risk?" "Doctor." Webb cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Actually, I might have some insight into that. Victoria's been having financial troubles for months. Her galleries haven't been profitable in years, and she's been borrowing heavily against her trust fund. Word in our circles is that she's facing bankruptcy. And she thought she could solve her problems by robbing us," Sebastian said, his voice dangerously quiet. "There's more," the security woman continued, swiping to another screen. "We also found this in Miss Ashford's office computer, which our IT team accessed remotely with a warrant. Draft emails to several news outlets ready to be sent tomorrow morning." She read from the screen. "Exclusive, charity fraud scandal rocks Brightwater Foundation. Sources close to the investigation confirm that a fake legal aid organization has embezzled over $2 million, with the scheme masterminded by civil rights attorney Clementine Rosewood, who allegedly seduced Sebastian Brightwater as part of an elaborate con." "That evil witch?" Clementine gasped. "She was going to destroy both our reputations and walk away clean." "She underestimated one thing," Sebastian said, standing abruptly. "She didn't count on me falling for the mark." The study door burst open and Victoria herself swept in, her silver gown now slightly wrinkled, her perfect composure cracking at the edges. "Charles, darling, I heard there was some confusion about the Rosewood partnership. Perhaps I can help clear things up?" Her smile was brilliant and completely desperate. "Victoria," Charles said coldly, "please have a seat. We have quite a few questions for you." "Questions?" Victoria's laugh was pitched too high. Surely there's been some mistake. I've been nothing but supportive of this partnership from the beginning. Yes, Sebastian interrupted, standing to face her. So supportive that you personally arranged for Clementine's invitation, forged months of correspondence, and set up fake financial records. Very supportive indeed. Victoria's face went through a remarkable transformation: surprise, fear, calculation, and finally cold fury. You have no proof of anything, she said, her cultured accent slipping slightly. And even if you did, who would believe that I would risk everything for a nobody like her? That's where you made your mistake, Victoria, Clementine said, rising from the sofa with quiet dignity. You assumed I was a nobody, but I'm a lawyer who specializes in fighting for people who can't fight for themselves. And I'm very, very good at recognizing bullies. The police are on their way, Charles announced calmly. I suggest you use the next few minutes to call your attorney. Victoria's composure finally shattered completely. You self-righteous fools. Do you have any idea what it's like to watch your entire world crumble while people like you live in your golden towers? I deserve that money more than any of your pet charities. You deserve prison, Sebastian said flatly. And that's exactly where you're going. As security moved to escort Victoria from the room, she turned back with one final venomous look. This isn't over, she spat. You think you've won something? She'll never fit into your world, Sebastian. She'll always be the girl who doesn't belong, and you'll tire of playing Prince Charming soon enough. The door closed behind her with a definitive click, leaving sudden, profound silence in its wake. Well, Dr. Webb said after a moment. That was thoroughly unpleasant. Charles stood and walked around his desk to where Clementine sat, still processing everything that had just happened. My dear, he said gently, I owe you a tremendous apology. My foundation put you through an ordeal that no one should have to endure, and I intend to make sure the world knows the truth about your character and your integrity. Thank you, she whispered, overwhelmed. But honestly, I just want to go home and pretend this entire evening was a very weird dream. Sebastian knelt beside her chair, taking both her hands in his. What if it doesn't have to be a dream? He asked quietly. What if it could be the beginning of something real? And for the first time all evening, Clementine smiled with genuine, uncomplicated joy. 3 months later, Clementine stood in front of the mirror in what had once been her cramped apartment bathroom, but was now the marble-appointed powder room of her new office space in downtown's prestigious legal district. The transformation still felt surreal, like she'd stepped through Alice's looking glass and emerged in a parallel universe where fairy tales actually came true. The scandal had broken nationwide within hours of Victoria's arrest. Society heiress attempts elaborate charity fraud had dominated headlines for weeks, but the narrative that emerged painted Clementine not as a victim, but as a hero. The brave young lawyer who'd exposed corruption at the highest levels of society. Her phone buzzed with a text from Penny. TV interview at 3 p.m. today, right? I've already set my DVR and called everyone I've ever met. You're going to be famous. Clementine smiled, typing back. Infamous, more like. And stop calling the local news station to ask if they need a better camera angle. Never. I'm your unofficial publicist now. Speaking of which, how's Prince Charming? Before she could answer, a soft knock came at her office door. Come in, she called, smoothing down her navy blazer. Designer now, courtesy of the Brightwater Foundation's very generous legal consulting contract. Sebastian stepped in, carrying 2 coffee cups, and wearing the kind of smile that still made her knees weak after 3 months of dating. Thought you might need caffeine before your interview, he said, setting the cups on her gleaming new desk. Penny texted me 17 times reminding me that proper hydration is essential for television appearances. She texted you? How did she even get your number? She's surprisingly resourceful. Also, she may have cornered me at the grocery store last week and demanded I provide regular updates on your happiness levels. Clementine laughed, accepting the coffee gratefully. I'm going to kill her. Slowly. Please don't. She's growing on me. Yesterday she sent me a 20-page document outlining why you deserve flowers at least twice a week. complete with scientific studies about the psychological benefits of surprise gestures. Please tell me you didn't actually read 20 pages of Penny's romantic advice. I read every word, Sebastian said solemnly. And I've implemented a strict twice-weekly flower schedule. Today happens to be Wednesday. As if on cue, he produced a small bouquet of white roses from behind his back, and Clementine felt her heart do that ridiculous fluttering thing it had been doing since their first dance. You're ridiculous, she said, accepting the flowers and rising on her toes to kiss him softly. Ridiculously in love with you, he murmured against her lips. Even after 3 months, hearing him say those words made her feel like she was floating. The girl who'd once practiced small talk in the mirror was now in love with one of the most eligible bachelors in the city. And somehow, impossibly, he loved her back. How's the new caseload? Sebastian asked, settling into one of her client chairs. Overwhelming in the best possible way. Clementine gestured to the files covering her desk. The Foundation's partnership has allowed me to take on 30 pro bono cases this month alone. Yesterday, I helped a single mother keep her apartment, and next week I'm representing a group of workers who haven't been paid in 3 months. And the Rosewood Legal Aid Society? Officially launches next month, she said, unable to keep the pride out of her voice. Fully funded, completely legitimate, and named after the fake organization that almost destroyed my life. There's some poetic justice in that. Sebastian's expression grew serious. Any regrets? About any of it? Clementine considered the question. 3 months ago, she'd been living paycheck to paycheck in a tiny apartment, representing clients who paid her in home-baked cookies and heartfelt gratitude. Now she had a thriving practice, a gorgeous office, and a relationship that made her friends openly weep with envy. Just one, she said finally. Sebastian's face fell. What? I regret not wearing more comfortable shoes to that gala. My feet hurt for a week afterward. He threw back his head and laughed, that rich, joyful sound that had first made her fall for him on a dance floor that seemed like a lifetime ago. Speaking of shoes, he said, his expression shifting to something she couldn't quite read. I have something for you. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box that made Clementine's heart stop entirely. Sebastian, she breathed. What are you? Relax, he said quickly, though his smile was nervous. It's not what you think. Well, not exactly what you think, not yet anyway. He opened the box to reveal not an engagement ring, but a delicate gold key on a matching chain. It's the key to the Brightwater family lake house, he explained. My grandmother left it to me, and I've never shared it with anyone before. But I want to share everything with you, Clementine. My family's history, my future plans, my terrible cooking attempts. Your cooking isn't terrible, she protested weakly, still staring at the key. I burned water last Tuesday. That was impressive, actually. Sebastian laughed, taking the necklace from the box and moving behind her to fasten it around her neck. His fingers were gentle against her skin, and she could feel him trembling slightly. This key represents a promise, he said quietly. That whatever happens between us happens at your pace, on your terms. No pressure, no expectations, just possibility. Clementine touched the key at her throat, feeling its warmth against her skin. And what if I want to explore those possibilities? She asked, turning to face him. Then we explore them together, he said simply. Starting with a weekend at the lake house if you're interested. Fair warning. There's no cell service, no internet, and the nearest neighbor is 3 miles away. Sounds terrifying, she said with a grin. When do we leave? Right after your interview. I have champagne chilling and enough groceries to survive a small apocalypse. You planned this whole thing, didn't you? I may have had help, he admitted. Penny provided a detailed timeline of optimal romantic gesture delivery. Before Clementine could respond, her office phone rang. Her assistant's voice came through the intercom. Miss Rosewood, the news crew is here for your interview. We'll be right out, Clementine called back, then turned to Sebastian. Ready to watch me stumble through questions about justice and integrity on live television? I've been ready since the moment you told off Victoria Ashford in front of 300 people, he said, offering her his arm. You're going to be brilliant. As they walked toward the door, Clementine caught their reflection in the mirror. Her in her sophisticated navy suit, him in his perfectly tailored charcoal gray, both of them glowing with happiness that seemed almost too good to be true. Sebastian, she said, pausing at the threshold. Yes? Thank you. For what? For seeing me, the real me, even when I was covered in champagne and terror. Clementine, he said, cupping her face gently in his hands. Falling in love with the real you was the easiest thing I've ever done. Outside her office, cameras waited to capture her story, the unlikely tale of a small-town lawyer who'd stumbled into scandal and emerged as a symbol of integrity, triumphing over corruption. But the real story, she thought as Sebastian squeezed her hand, was much simpler than that. Sometimes when you're brave enough to accept an invitation to the impossible reaches back and transforms your entire world. And sometimes, just sometimes, fairy tales come true in the most unexpected ways. 2 years later, the morning sun streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Brightwater family lake house painted everything in shades of gold and possibility. Clementine sat cross-legged on the dock, her laptop balanced precariously on her knees as she reviewed case files for the Rosewood Legal Aid Society, now the largest pro bono legal organization in the state. You know, Sebastian's voice came from behind her, warm with amusement. Most people come to lake houses to relax, not to work. She turned to find him approaching with 2 steaming coffee mugs, his hair still messy from sleep, wearing nothing but pajama pants, and a smile that still made her heart skip beats. Most people don't have a court hearing on Monday that could change housing laws for the entire county, she replied, accepting her coffee gratefully. Besides, this is relaxing. No city noise, no phone calls, just me, my cases, and the most beautiful view in... Her words died as she looked up at him. He was holding something behind his back and his expression had shifted from sleepy contentment to nervous excitement. Sebastian Brightwater, she said slowly. What are you hiding? Nothing, he said unconvincingly. Just close your laptop for a minute. Why? Because I love you desperately, and I have something important to ask you, and I'd rather not compete with housing law for your attention. Clementine's heart stopped, literally stopped. For a moment she wondered if this was how people felt right before they fainted from pure happiness. Sebastian, 2 years ago, he began, his voice steady despite the obvious nerves. A mysterious woman crashed into my world wearing an emerald dress and a look of complete terror. She spilled champagne on herself, called herself mortified, and then proceeded to be the bravest person I'd ever met. I wasn't brave, she whispered. I was terrified. You were both. You stood up in front of 300 people and told the truth when it would have been easier to run. You faced down reporters and scandal and my family's doubt, and you never once stopped being exactly who you are. He moved closer, still holding whatever it was behind his back. You transformed my family's foundation into something that actually changes lives. You've helped hundreds of families keep their homes, their dignity, their hope. You made me want to be the kind of man who deserves someone as extraordinary as you. Sebastian, you don't have to prove... Yes, I do, he interrupted gently, because I want to spend the rest of my life proving it. Every single day. And then he was kneeling on the dock beside her, pulling his hand from behind his back to reveal a ring that made her grandmother's vintage diamond look like a flashlight next to the sun. Clementine Rosewood, he said, his voice breaking slightly. Will you marry me? The laptop slid off her knees and landed on the dock with a clatter that would have horrified her any other day. But today, all she could see was Sebastian's face, hopeful and vulnerable and so full of love that it took her breath away. She started, then stopped, overwhelmed by the enormity of the moment. That's not a yes, Sebastian observed, trying to joke but unable to hide the worry in his eyes. It's not a no either, she said quickly. It's just, are you sure? Really sure? Because I'm never going to be the kind of wife who hosts charity luncheons without spilling something. I'm going to keep working cases that make me cry in the shower. I'm going to drag you to protest rallies and make you hold signs about social justice. God, I hope so, he said fervently. Clementine, I don't want a society wife who fits into my world perfectly. I want you, exactly as you are. Passionate, stubborn, brilliant, beautiful you. Even if I never learn which fork to use for which course. Especially then. I'll spend the rest of my life teaching you about salad forks if you'll spend the rest of yours teaching me how to see the world the way you do. Clementine looked down at the ring, a perfect solitaire that caught the morning light and threw rainbows across the water. Then she looked at Sebastian, kneeling on a dock that had probably seen generations of Brightwater family moments, offering her not just his heart, but his entire future. Yes, she whispered. Yes? Yes, she said louder, laughing as happy tears spilled down her cheeks. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. Sebastian's face transformed with relief and joy as he slipped the ring onto her finger with hands that shook only slightly. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her, which she realized it probably had been. I love you, he said, pulling her into his arms. I love your terrible morning hair and your tendency to argue with the television during the news. I love that you keep granola bars in your purse for homeless people and that you cry during commercials with puppies. I love that you made me want to be better than I ever thought I could be. I love you too, she said through her tears. Even though you're probably going to insist on a wedding that involves more than 3 people and a justice of the peace. Actually, Sebastian said with a grin, I was thinking we could get married right here, on this dock, with the lake as our witness. Small ceremony, just family and friends, and then we can have a big party later for everyone else. You've been planning this, haven't you? For months. Penny may have provided detailed input on optimal proposal scenarios. Of course she did. Where is she anyway? I'm surprised she's not hiding in the bushes with a camera. She's at your apartment, Sebastian admitted sheepishly, waiting for my text so she can start calling everyone we've ever met. Dr. Webb is standing by to perform the ceremony whenever we're ready. He got ordained online specifically for this purpose, and my father has been planning the reception for weeks. You really thought of everything. I tried to. I wanted this to be perfect for you. Clementine looked around at the lake sparkling in the morning sun, the dock where she'd just gotten engaged to the love of her life, the man who'd seen past her terrified exterior to the woman she was becoming. It is perfect, as she said simply. Everything about it is absolutely perfect. As if on cue, her phone buzzed with a text. She glanced at the screen to see a message from Penny. If you don't call me in the next 5 minutes with details, I'm driving up there and crash the romantic moment. I should probably call her before she has an aneurysm, Clementine said, holding up her phone. In a minute, Sebastian said, capturing her lips in a kiss that tasted like coffee and promises and the beginning of forever. When they finally broke apart, Clementine rested her forehead against his and marveled at how much her life had changed since that terrifying Saturday evening, when she decided to be brave enough to accept an impossible invitation. So, she said with a grin, when do we get married? Tomorrow, next week, whenever you want. I've waited 2 years to call you my wife. I'm not waiting any longer than absolutely necessary. Tomorrow sounds perfect, she said, then laughed at the expression on his face. What? You said everything was already planned. It is, but I thought you'd want more time to prepare. Sebastian, she interrupted, holding up her hand to admire the ring sparkling in the sunlight. I've been preparing for this my whole life. I just didn't know it until I met you. 2 miles away, Penny's phone buzzed with a text. Call everyone. We're having a wedding tomorrow. And yes, you can be maid of honor. The response came back instantly. I knew it. I've already picked out my dress. Also, I may have already booked the photographer, and ordered flowers, and called the caterer. Don't ask questions. Just be grateful I'm so efficient at managing your love life. Clementine showed the text to Sebastian, who threw back his head and laughed. I think, he said, pulling her close, we're going to have a very interesting marriage. The best kind, she agreed, and kissed him again as the sun climbed higher over the lake, painting their future in shades of gold. Some invitations, she reflected, were worth accepting even when they led to the most unexpected places, especially when they led to love. The end.